Hello, this is Jolly Life, and today we'll make sushi for our lunch. There are quite a lot of steps to make sushi, but the first one is to prepare the sushi rice. Now I will show you how we wash it and how we boil it. Now I'm going to pour this rice into the pot. This is not too hard to do. Okay, now our rice is in the pot. We're going to start to wash it. I like to use some cold water, and you should try to fill it up to halfway because you don't need that much water. Okay, now that the water is in, you should use your hands, make sure they are clean, and start to stir the rice. Okay, and eventually you'll see white, foggy water. This is fine because this is the starchiness of the rice. Now, after you have stirred it, you are going to drain it out. Be careful not to put any rice in the sink because that's just going to waste the rice. Okay, now we're going to repeat this step 2 more times to fully wash the rice. Now I have drained the rice fully, and now we're going to read the instructions or what says on the box. So first we need to add 660 milliliters of water and the washed rice to a saucepan. We'll bring it to the boil and simmer for 10 minutes. Okay, now I have measured out 666 milliliters of water, and I'm going to add it to 500 grams of rice. Okay, now that we have added it, we shall bring it to the boil and we're going to simmer it for 10 minutes. Okay, I have turned on the heat now, and we're going to wait for the water to boil, and then we're going to let it simmer for 10 minutes with the lid on. While your rice is cooking, make sure every 2 minutes you give it a stir so then it doesn't stick to the pan and get burnt, because then it's not going to be a very good sushi rice. Now this has been simmering for 10 minutes. Now we have to turn off the heat. And we're going to let it rest with the lid on for 30 minutes. In the meantime, while we're waiting for the rice to rest, we're going to prepare our ingredients. So for a classic sushi roll, today we're going to use daikon or pickled radish, kimchi, just a little bit because it might be too strong, avocado, and for our fish we can use salmon or tuna. And I like to use yellow pepper because it gives more colour to the sushi, but you can use whatever pepper you like. Okay, now we're going to start with the pepper. There are many ways to cook the pepper, but I like to chop, for example, like this. Chop this. Can get a bit tough once you start cutting. And like this. And we're going to start cutting sideways so it has like this, a nice shape to it. So you need to chop off the ones that stick out, and you just need to halve it so it's easier to put the peppers into the sushi. So again, like this, and you have. Now our pepper is ready, so we can now move on to the avocado. And as I'm not very good at chopping this vegetable, I'm going to ask my dad to cut it for me. Okay, now our vegetables are finished. Time to cook the fish. So I'm going to start off with the tuna because it's better, it's easier. You would like to do it quite thin and about a bit slanted because it gives it a better effect. And if you feel like some of the slices that you have cut are not very good, you can either just eat them because tuna is edible raw, or you can just cook it into a different dish. So we have chopped pepper, we have daikon or pickled radish, we have salmon, we have tuna, avocado, and kimchi. Okay, and while we were doing this, the rice is now cooled down, and now I'll show you how to season it. Okay, now we have 3 things to season our rice, starting with rice vinegar, and we're going to add 6 tablespoons of it. You may think that this is quite a lot, but it isn't, because we're making quite a lot of rice and we want it thoroughly to be seasoned. It's fine if you don't add the exact measurements, but it is great if you do. Okay, now we have finished with our rice vinegar. We're going to do the sugar. It will need 4 tablespoons of sugar. Again, it's because we are making quite a lot. Yep. Okay, and we'll need 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, now we have finished our ingredients. We stir together. Make sure you incorporate the sugar, the salt and the rice vinegar all together. Make sure that there's no granules left. Make sure it's all smooth and mixed well. Okay, now our rice is ready. We are going to add the seasoning. Make sure you get it all. And then stir thoroughly so the seasoning gets on the rice really well. Now that we we have our rice and our vegetables and our fish, and now we're going to start assembling the sushi. First, with your nori, it can be store-bought, but we got this from Japan. And so a tip you can use, you should always use the shiny side, not the lined side, because it will look better as on the outside. So first we water our hands a bit. You don't have to use a water bowl, but I choose to use one because it just saves me some time rather than just going to the sink and then turning on the tap and off. So when you spread the rice across the seaweed, you have to make sure that you leave a gap on the top so you can water the top when you roll, because then the water will act as like a sellotape and like a glue, and it will hold the roll together more. Also, when you spread it, make sure that it's quite evenly spread, but also you have to have a bit of rice. Like you don't do it very thinly spread, because that will make the roll a bit thin and it'll break easily. So that's why you should use quite a lot of rice and spread it throughout, not just at one spot, because that's not very good. Okay, it is fine. Doesn't take too much time, but if you want to get it really perfect, then it will take a few minutes of spreading the rice. As you can see here, I've left a little gap where I'm going to put not too much water, because then it will be the space for my water. Okay, now that our rice is fully spread out, I will start adding my ingredients. So I normally like to start with fish first. So in this case, I'm going to add tuna. And when you add your ingredients, you don't do it at the very start, because then you will have to pressurize the ingredients quite a lot so they don't fall out, and that will squeeze them together a lot, and then it won't be as good and tender as it is. So like this, I don't really like to use too much fish, because then it'll overload the sushi quite a lot. So then you just add about 3 peppers, maybe 4 if you're feeling generous, and then you add the thin slices of avocado on top, like this, so they're neatly on top of each other. And then you can water your hands a bit, and then you can start rolling. As you can see here, it gives a bit of space, and then you hold them together so they don't fall out, but gently, not too pressurizing them. And then lift here, just pull it down a bit, and then you roll. Make sure to lift the wrap, because if you don't, it'll end up in the sushi and then it won't be very good. Right, now it's near to the end, so you wet your 2 fingers and give it 2 strokes of water, and like this, squeeze it just a gentle bit to make it a bit more steady, and there is your sushi roll. This is a classic sushi roll that you often see in restaurants, and you can just put it in, and then chop the outer layers and until it is over. Okay, now that we've finished our tuna roll, we'll start with the salmon roll. Get a big chunk of rice and spread evenly. This is the same procedure, same quantities. This is my rice here. Now I'll start to add the fish. This time I'm going to use daikon, the pickled radish here, because to add a little bit more flavour, it gives it a bit of sourness and a bit of a tang. So that will be quite good because it's nice to experience new flavours when you're making sushi. Okay, just about 4 pieces of salmon. This, like that, and then you'll start adding. No, this time we'll use the pickled radish instead of the pepper because it's got same qualities. It is crunchy, it's a bit sweet, and I think it's a very good replacement. And then we add our avocado on top. Okay, this is our roll. Now we start to roll. Hold it a bit. Okay, and then 2 fingers, 2 strokes of water, and then this will act as a stabilizer. Squish it throughout a bit, not too much, and there is our second roll. Okay, now I'm going to try a reverse roll, which will require a little bit more work because you need to arrange cling film and you need to flip the nori and so on and so on. So if you don't want to do this recipe, it's completely fine because it's quite hard to make this. So don't, just use the classical recipe. So once you've finished with the rice, arranging it, you would need to leave a little bit of space by the side to flip the nori over. That is why we have cling film, because the rice would probably stick to the wood and it will be quite hard to clean, and you won't end up with a sushi roll, so you would have to clean up and get nothing, so that's not very efficient. Okay, nearly finished. I think this is fine. This will require a little bit less rice, and you won't need to leave a gap because it will be surrounded by sushis. It will already be sticky, so you would not need it. Okay, now once you have finished the rice, you need dry hands for this so you don't wetten the nori thing, and then you let go. Okay, this should look something a bit like this. This might be a little bit messy after all because the rice might have not fully set on the nori, but that's fine. Okay, so now we're going to use the regular ingredients. We're going to use salmon here, just a couple. I think that this will do. This time we'll try with kimchi because it's quite an interesting ingredient. So it'd be nice to use it. If you don't like kimchi or the smell of it, you don't need to use it. This is just optional because you don't really put kimchi in sushi, do you? So now, I think you this, and then you do the same style. And I was wrong, you need to wetten this, and then... I know.
Tu se ti вътре в суш.
Okay. Shit.
Трябваше да го махаш докато го завиваш, разбираш ли?
Това ще бъде много трудно.
И така.
Alright, and that is your makeshift reversible sushi roll. This will probably likely to fall apart, but it looks alright. You could sprinkle some sesame on top, maybe some avocado, but it's not your typical sushi recipe. Okay, now my father is going to cut the sushi roll because I'm quite eager to know how it was. When you cut sushi, I don't really recommend the final bit because it is most likely to fall apart. So you can do it as a taste test. And by the looks of it, it doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, I think it's very good. Yeah, space for you.
No, you can have it.
Okay, cool.
And then you can arrange it how you want. Like this. I think that looks quite a lot like a sushi roll.
Okay.
And ones that you get in restaurants. Maybe this one's a little bit worse, but it's very good for homemade. So you can definitely do this recipe now that we've found out. Okay, I think that's a good result. This is, I find, a very good piece of sushi.
Yeah, it's excellent. Well done.
Thank you. Alright, now let's get on to the other sushi roll. This time, I don't think I'll use my source of protein, so the fish. I'll try only vegetables, see how it'll turn out. But if you're a vegetarian, you can't eat fish, this recipe is quite good, so you could use this one. Now we'll start by adding the peppers because I think that they're closest to fish. Not that they are close, but... Okay, as this is vegetarian, this won't be quite as filling, so make sure to use a reasonable amount. This, about 2 daikons, and then we'll use some avocado and just gently put them on top. Okay, and then just to sprinkle it with some kimchi. Not a lot because it'll become a bit too spicy. Water it. Okay, now it's time to roll. Like this, carefully holding it. And this. There you go. 2 fingers. Stroke, stroke. Like this, and then to give it a good shape, just like this. And then this is the vegetarian roll. Okay, now that we have finished our regular sushi, we're going to move on to the sashimi. This is a type of sushi that doesn't require nori, the seaweeds. It just needs rice and then either fish or vegetables just on top. This is regularly served with soy sauce that you should dip into it, but this isn't for the regular sushi as well, because you don't need to dip it in because it might fall apart because of the liquid. Okay, we have this maker that you can order online on eBay or Amazon. It's not too expensive, and it's a great way. It's really fast to make some sushi. So you should fill it to about nearly full, not too full. So it's around this. Just leave a small gap. Just fill it in a little bit more, and then that's your sushi. And then you water your hands, wash the rice off, and then you get the lid. You place it on top, and you press really hard. You need to put quite a lot of pressure on. Okay, this is ready. So now what you do is take the top off. Like this. And then you use the bottom here. There's 2 flaps, and this allows you to get rid of to release the sushi. So you do this, press on the flap, and you put some space between them, and then this one here as well. And then if you have some rice left over, which we have enough for at least one more, you could fill it up again and you can make some sushi. But for now, with the batch that we have, we're going to use some fish, and to make it look nice and appetizing, you need large pieces of fish. So, and if they're not very neat, you can neaten them up if you can. So you could do like this. If it's not like here, it's not quite a lot, so you can just use 2 small pieces like this, and you can this, and then this is a salmon sashimi, and or you could use tuna. So like this, small strip, carefully put it on, and then you can layer some more pieces on top, and maybe like this, and then just one more like this, and that's actually, now you could take it off, and that's a tuna sashimi. And then I don't really prefer this, but you can do a vegetable one, and you can use the long bits to form like this, and you could have a pepper one, whichever way you like, but I think I prefer, from quite a lot of experience, that the tuna and the salmon are better, because just peppers gives like a boring taste. But if some people just prefer vegetables, that's completely fine. And then just finish it up, and yes. Okay, and these are my sashimis. Okay, now this is my final sushi arrayed on the table, and it's all ready for our family dinner. And now this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed how I make sushi, and see you next time on Jolly Life.